We sold our souls for rock and roll. Black Sabbath, 1975. No rock album in the history of rock albums has had more of an effect on my life than that one. Not necessarily the music, nor the lyrics contained within, but the title. How, you ask? Well, this may take a while, as I'm big on details, so please bear with me. I hope I don't bore you too much. Now first off, let me introduce myself. My name is Mikey Z. That's not my real name, though no one really cares what my real name is. Anyway, I'm the lead, well, I was the lead guitarist for the rock group Blackened Image. Maybe you've heard of us? No? Okay, moving on. I say I was, because there is no more Blackened Image, as they're all dead. Except me, of course. Now, in order to answer your question, I have to go back in time. Back to a time of youth. A time of innocence. A time of starry eyes and wild dreams. And the time I messed up. The year was 1986. I was a senior in high school when hair metal ruled the airwaves and Reaganomics was in full effect. In fact, I've got to go back even further. I've always been into music, as far back as I can remember, that is. And what I do remember is sitting on the living room floor at about 7, maybe 8 years old, playing with my Lego and listening to artists such as Roy Orbison, the Statler Brothers and Marty Robbins, just to name a few, on a record player while my parents relaxed on the couch. I always liked the way that the drums, the bass and the guitars all worked together in a rhythm, but I didn't understand a lot of the lyrics back then, being so young and all. I mean, I understood what they were saying, but not necessarily what they meant. I did notice that most of the songs seemed to rhyme, and thought to myself, hey, I can do that. Cat, hat, fish, dish. This is easy. I was hooked. So I started making up little rhymes and singing them around the house, which drove my parents crazy. But from that point on, I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and that was write songs. As I grew older, my taste in music began to expand, and I listened to everything. If I liked it, I listened to it. Everything from 50s doo-wop to 60s psychedelics, 70s disco to 80s pop, old country to new country and everything in between. That was until I discovered heavy metal. That stuff was loud, fast, and in your face, full of attitude and emotion, and it was perfect for an awkward teenager like me. It was a hot summer day in 1983, and I was about to turn 15. My parents had planned a trip to go visit an old family friend, and his family and I played baseball with his son Ricky in the late 70s, as we were on the same team. By this time I had learned how to actually write lyrics for a song, and had written a few. Actually, I'd written a lot, and I kept them all in several black and white composition books, carrying one with me wherever I went. We arrived at Ricky's parents' house, and my parents said their hellos whilst I went to hang out with Ricky in his bedroom. After talking for a while, he went to his closet and pulled out his guitar, a snake-skinned 6-string Peavey. I didn't even know he played. He plugged it into his amp and belted out the opening riff to Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train, which I didn't know what it was at the time. I was completely blown away. I'd never heard anything like it before, and he told me it was a new style of music called heavy metal. "That's awesome," I said. I then told him that I write song lyrics, and he said, "Cool." So I showed him what I'd got in my book. I read through them, found one he liked called The Blackest Dark of Dawn, and we sat there all afternoon arranging a song. I sang. Well, tried to, but I sound like a dying cat, and he put it to music on guitar. Okay, I thought to myself, that's it. I'm going to learn how to play guitar too. So on the way home I asked my dad for a guitar for my 15th birthday, and the Ozzy Osbourne album, Blizzard of Oz. By now records had become obsolete and music was only available on cassette tapes, but thankfully I got them both. My parents have always been cool like that. I played that album over and over again, and it was like a drug. I became a fully fledged metalhead and started listening to and buying almost any album under the label heavy metal or hard rock. Kiss, Motley Crue, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, WASP, Twisted Sister, everything. And I soon discovered that Ozzy Osbourne once sang in a band called Black Sabbath. So I bought all their stuff too, and they had a totally different sound, but it still rocked. My tape collection was enormous, and I remember the day I found the album that changed my life forever. It was in a markdown bin at Walmart. We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. It was a compilation album full of songs I already had on the original albums, but I liked the title, so I bought it. I liked it so much, in fact, that I wrote those words in black Sharpie on the back of one of my jean jackets and wore it everywhere I went. Now, as for the guitar, I came to find out that I have very poor hand-eye coordination. I could play the notes, but I couldn't make them sound like music. It was very frustrating, so I gave up trying after a while. I just tinkered with the guitar every now and then, and focused more on my writing. Now fast forward to that day in 1986, when I'd just turned 18. It started out as a normal Saturday, and as I woke up, I got dressed in my usual attire, which was torn jeans, a heavy metal t-shirt, I believe it was a Suicidal Tendencies shirt, and that old jean jacket that I mentioned earlier. I walked to the kitchen, poured a cup of coffee, drank it, then poured another one and sat at the dining table, talking to my mum as my dad had already left for work. We talked for a while. I finished my coffee, then I decided to head over to the mall and pick up the latest Metallica album. I arrived there and headed straight for FYE, the mall's only music store. But because of 2 cups of coffee, I suddenly got the urge to pee. So I turned left and headed for the food court, as that was where the bathrooms were located. I made it in the nick of time, walking into the bathroom, and the lights flickered once or twice, but I thought nothing of it and proceeded inside. It was completely empty and smelled like bleach, and there I was at the urinal, in my attire, doing my business, when suddenly from behind me I heard a cold, raspy voice say,
"Would you?"
Now of course this struck me as odd, because I hadn't heard anyone come in. I finished my business, zipped up my pants, and as I turned around I said in a cocky tone, "Would I what?" I stood there frozen in place, shaken with what I was looking at. I was face to face with the oddest looking old man I've ever seen. He was tall and skinny, had big bulging dark eyes, sunken cheekbones, and dry chapped lips. He was as pale as a ghost, and his hands were all wrinkled up with age spots covering about 80% of them. He looked like death warmed over. He was wearing an all-white 3-piece suit, complete with a hat and snakeskin shoes, just like Ricky's guitar. He stood with a cane with what appeared to be a goat's head on it, and in retrospect I should have known, but I was young and stupid back then. He opened his mouth to speak, pieces of dry skin falling from his lips as he said,
"Sell your soul for rock and roll, would you?"
Now me being the young cocky dumbass that I was, I screamed out, "Hell yeah, old man, rock and roll." But I messed up big time. The old man then smiled, and I nearly crapped myself when I saw his teeth, because they weren't teeth at all. They looked like sharp, pointed little razors where his teeth should have been. He then raised his arms towards the ceiling, dropping his cane, and brought them down swiftly, looked me straight in the eye as he whispered one word,
"Deal,"
with that creepy smile still plastered on his face. My eyes became heavy, and my body went limp. Then everything went black. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed my video. And if you did, could you please give me virtual hugs by subscribing and clicking that notifications button. I also have a Patreon page and YouTube channel membership if you'd like to support me further. Thank you again for being here. keep being creepy.